I'm so excited to chat with Jessie. She is by far one of the best managers that I have ever had the chance to get to work with and learn from. And every time I ask her how to do it and what her secret is and how to do this better, and when I fail miserably at it, she's like my one-on-one. And over time, I finally come to believe her. And so this got to be actually one of the first things that we wrote about at Helia because I just feel like it's so foundational. And now Jesse's going to tell us all about it, which I am so lucky. Like, how did you get to be like such a great manager? Like, tell us all the things.
Thank you for the compliment. I don't know that I'm the best manager, but
One of the best. You
one
are
of the
one
best.
of them.
Thank you. I really appreciate the confidence. When I started out managing people and I would have check-ins, for the most part, it was like me cheerleading and them giving me the updates that they had. And while it was like a nice moment of connection, it was not a particularly good use of time. It wasn't effective, and I don't actually think I was helping them grow in their roles or helping them answer difficult questions. And my best friend Rachel told me about a book called Managing to Change the World, and the fact that she and her boss did something called snaps and craps, that's what they called it, where it was two pluses, and I changed it to pluses and deltas. So, like, shout outs, and yeah. And from that book, I learned some kind of components of what was good, was in a good check-in. So the pieces that I love in the check-in document that I took from there, as well as results-based accountability, which I was trained on through the Casey Foundation, it was really about accountability for me and accountability for the person that I was working with. So both being able to give each other two-way feedback at the beginning of a conversation and say, like, this is what really worked for me this week or these last 2 weeks. This is what didn't, and this is my feedback. I love being able to get that from my staff in addition to being able to give that to them. I think you taught me feedback is a gift. And I do think you learn more from the people you supervise than the people that supervise you, what you're good at and what you need to grow in, because they know you better, they see you more often, they know what works for them, they know what doesn't work for them. And so I feel like I've been able to grow as a manager because of that two-way feedback. I love that piece of it always starting that way. And then the accountability piece is that in every check-in, we talk about what we said we were going to do last time. And while it's really simple, I think it's a piece we often miss at work, which is we make commitments, we say we're going to do them, and sometimes we are more talk than action and we don't return back to the thing we said we were going to do. And so I learned that from a results-based accountability, moving from talk to action, and just like the action of having a box that says in the next 2 weeks I will be successful if, and then when we get back together, like, were you successful in that thing? Has just been so helpful, I think, in the development of me as a manager being able to help hold people accountable. And more importantly, I think people being able to hold themselves accountable and like having that thought partner who they can say, like, I didn't finish it, and this is why, and this is what I'm having barriers with, and how can you help me solve it? That's always been really, really helpful as part of the check-in as well. One other thing I would say about the check-in that I really, really love is that it separates things into updates and things that I need help with, which can feel like a kind of superficial division. And in the beginning, when people use the check-in, they're like, I don't, what's the difference? Like, I want to talk to you about lots of things. Can I just make a list of things we're going to talk about? And the thing I like about that is, like, as a manager, sometimes you just need updates. Like we talked about this last time, just tell me how it's going with X, Y, and Z, this staff person, this thing. But items for your thoughts is like a different, I think, thought exercise, which is like, what am I dealing with right now that I want another person's help with? And it helps me to be able to see that and like be thoughtful as we're walking into the conversation. Like, where am I actually going to need to put on my thinking hat, my strategizing, and like really help you as a staff person figure out your like best next move.
I also just feel like there's so much agency in that, right? It's like I'm deciding where I want help and where I don't need
I
it. And I think that feels like really powerful in any relationship, right?
totally agree. Totally agree.
I think the other thing I love about your one-on-one is like how it's focused on outcomes and not just like
Mhm.
rundown of things. Because I think it's so, I don't know, we always have 5 million things, right? Like, and I always feel better when I write out my to-do list because then I'm like, oh, it's not like in my head, but it is a different muscle to think about not just all the things I have to do, but what am I trying to get to? Can you talk about how that fits in?
Yeah, I think that that's the hardest thing for people to get used to, and people don't usually like it at first. I think just like as humans, we know we're working really hard and we want credit for the hard work we're doing. And being results driven can sometimes feel like a threat or like a discomfort when it's like, are we just about results or are we actually about like the hard work that I'm putting forward? And what I learned in results based accountability is like, because we're working in nonprofits in my context or schools in my context, like making things happen and getting to results is actually about driving change for people that need the support that we're offering. And so there's like nothing threatening about results. In fact, like results are the reason that we do this work all day long. And so when you think about results in a different way like that, and when I learned through results-based accountability, there's this accountability pathway that goes from ignoring things and waiting and hoping all the way to making things happen. That's kind of how I envision results. Like I think there is a human nature. I mean, I'm a waiter and hoper. I have been my whole life. Like I'm an optimist, and I'm like maybe if I just like think about something, it'll happen. And when I learned that accountability pathway, I was like, oh, like waiting and hoping actually doesn't get us to results. So like, what can we do to move ourselves more into action? And so I think like being outcomes driven in a check-in document is just like another tool and another discipline to say like it's not just about like working hard and doing hours of work that feel challenging and that we're working together as a team to make things to like check things off a list, but like
Yeah.
the much more important thing is what are the things we aim to do and accomplish, and like were we able to do and accomplish them. And by the way, it's like really normal and fine if things don't get accomplished, right? Like that's not true of everything, but for the most part when you're meeting every week or every other week, things are not going to get done. Somebody gets sick, another project gets thrown in your plate, like things happen. This is not about like let's be accountable and let's be you know, like really didactic or like difficult about things. It's much more like we all want outcomes. We all want results for the communities we serve. We all want population change, level change. And that's like why we do this work. So like if it didn't happen, how do we remove barriers? How can I help you? How can we think together to like make things better? And when you think about results that way and like draw a really distinct line back to the people you serve or whatever the project you're working on, the outcome you're trying to drive, like I think it feels more ambitious and more exciting, and then results become the point of the work rather than like something that you're saying is not getting done or that you're feeling bad about, if that makes sense.
It's like why we're all here.
It's why we're all here, is like to get actual results. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I will say that like I had a hard time with that when I first started doing results-based accountability. Like before the check-in document, before like
Mhm.
that was everything that I used as a manager. Sometimes when people say like, what do you want to accomplish in the next 2 weeks? I'd be like, you have no idea how much I have to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are we talking about results right now? Like, I could look at this checklist. It's crazy. It was a hard mindset shift for me to think about results too. So as a
Mhm.
manager, I really empathize with that when people first see the document and are like, this is a lot. This is like a lot to complete before we check in. I think like that mindset shift and seeing it as a tool towards like really driving results is part of like what makes it a better piece and for people to feel more comfortable with it.
Well, can you talk more about like when you start using this? Because I know it's like it's hard to get used to. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
like all those different things. Like how would someone get started with this if they're a manager and want their team to use it, or maybe they want their manager to start thinking about using it because it would be more productive? Like what would you think?
Yeah. So now I show them the Healy article because you did a really good job of writing up why I use the one-on-one document and what it includes. And it also has these tools. So literally now when I start supervising someone, I'm like, would you read this article that somebody wrote about the one-on-one document? Um,
Feel
so
kind of famous right now.
I was a high school teacher, and so like all my training was about zone of proximal development and like meeting people where they are. And so as a manager, I try to do the same thing, which is like when I first start working with you, I'm actually not going to ask you to do the entire thing. It's a lot. It feels intimidating. It looks like it's going to take an hour to complete. I always tell people like if you're doing it over the course of the week, it's really going to only take 5 or 10 minutes to fill out because you're like transferring things from the week before and it shouldn't take you more than 5 or 10 minutes to complete. So I try to like lower the effective filter and like make people a little less stressed out about it. I actually, when I start, I make a big deal of the plus delta at the beginning and the fact that it's hard for people sometimes to give their manager feedback, but that I really want it. Um, so that's a big piece of it. And I don't, when I first start, I say like there's certain sections we're just not going to use in the very beginning. We're going to go slowly and understand how to use it. So it usually takes about a month to 6 weeks to be using the entire document. When we first start out, we're like using different components of it. I think I start out with like the plus deltas and then also separating different kinds of items, like the piece about updates and then like what I want your feedback on. The parts at the bottom that are like, what did I achieve? What am I going to achieve in the next 2 weeks? I give a little bit of time to do, and then we just check in on it and see how it's going. But I do ask people that it doesn't, I just don't want people to like, I don't want people to spend more time on the check-in document than actually doing their work. So I want it to feel like a tool rather than a chore. I'm not always successful. Some people don't like it. So, and when I started using it myself, it was hard in the beginning, but then I got used to it and then it became something that I really liked.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's something about having that sort of discipline and that sort of grounding and the thing that you can always come back to. That
Yep.
I know you've also said, like as a manager, it gives you kind of a point of like truth and like something to history, right? Like a record of it. So like when you're thinking about reviews or thinking about like what projects to share with folks or like what's going to happen there. And it also gives them a record of like what have I accomplished over the year? Like where is that? And so when you're thinking about the results and the outcomes, it's such grounding. And
Yep.
also, I keep hearing from you around like, the pluses and deltas at the top and like the feedback in both ways and both how that's such a gift and something you can look back to and like hold on, right? Because there are moments when it's like, I don't feel great about how things are going. Let me
Yeah,
just go look at those things have
absolutely.
gone well. But also the like how that builds a relationship, right? And how that builds trust.
Yeah.
And like a document can do that is kind of cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was gonna say about that, not every week is there a plus or a delta. That's an important piece too. Like you shouldn't just drag them out of nowhere. You use them when they're useful and that frame is there for you. And I absolutely, and I was the other piece about like feedback over the course of a year. I'm a strong believer that when we write reviews, we're like thinking about the last quarter. I just think it's really hard to remember the whole year. And so exactly what you said, just like capturing it, being able to analyze it and like look back, both for like things that went well and things we needed to work on. I just think having a record of the whole year is very helpful as a manager in giving people like annual feedback or quarterly or any mini piece of that.
Yeah, recency bias is just real.
Yep.
Any other tips, tricks, kind of recommendations? Like don't force feedback, roll it out over, the course of 4 to 6 weeks. It's like all good. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yep.
The shift of like updates versus what to talk about is something that takes a little time. Any
Yep.
other secret sauce?
Um, I think it's really helpful if a supervisor uses it. I will say I'm a little bit of a hypocrite here because my current supervisor, we use like a different structure and we tried to use it for a while and like we haven't, the person who leads the process needs to be really bought into it. And I do think that in an organization, if everybody's using it, it can be very, very helpful if everybody's having similar conversations. And so a piece of advice that I'm not totally following myself currently, but I have in the past is like, if you're a manager who uses it, be a manager who uses it with your manager. So I do try to keep like the buckets alive. And I think it can be really good as a manager who's using it to like for everything, right? Empathy is an important skill. Being able to like say that, I did this week too, and I'm doing the same kind of feedback with my own manager when I'm doing it with you as my managee. I think that that's really valuable. And then I think also checking in with people about it. Like it doesn't need to be the topic of every conversation, but just like, how is this going for you? Just this structure in general, being outcomes driven, talking about like what's going to be accomplished, coming back to the accountability. I think checking in with people on how things are going is always good. And with a tool like this, having moments where you can say like, how's this going for you? Are you liking it? Are you using it with your staff? What's your feedback on it? I do have people who have asked to modify sections of it, and I've been okay with that because I think it's important for like people to have that autonomy to figure out like what's going to be most useful for them in a supervisory relationship.
Maybe is why you're one of the best managers I got to know.
Thanks,
And
Jess. I appreciate it. You're a pretty great manager too.
thanks. Maybe I could have been better if you had shared the one-on-one doc with me when I was managing you. But here we are.
Now it's
Holding
water
it up.
under the bridge. Now you know everything about it. And in any
Now I know everything.
future supervisor relationships, you will have it at your fingertips.
And I will note that I do not use it exactly because it doesn't like work in my current iteration, but there's so
Yep.
many pieces in it that I have carried through, like the pluses and deltas, the like outcomes, like what are we accomplishing this week,
Yep.
the
Yep.
revisiting those, the like what are updates versus what are discussion. We actually split up our meetings into like update meetings and discussion meetings. So like
Nice.
so much good stuff in there that even in like a very small iteration that's like almost two peers working together, it's a very like you hit you just hit all the boxes.
All the
So
boxes. Yeah, I wanted to say that too. Like, you don't have to be strict about anything in life. I don't think. I think it's like actually bad to be so strict that you're using something and you're not thinking about it. Like, I've made it what I think looks pretty and like looks like sections that make sense. And like I think it's the spirit of the thing. It's not the exact sections, and like it doesn't have to be followed to a T to be useful as a tool and as a thinking exercise.
yeah. And I do want to just acknowledge, like, you spent a lot of time, like, being really thoughtful and intentional about what the sections are and how they're organized and the order of them and all of those pieces. And so it was just fun to get to learn because I think anytime someone has put as much into something as you and then use it and has such great results, like, there's something really magical about it. So
I
thank you
appreciate
for
that.
sharing it with
Yeah, of
us.
course, of course.
Any other final words of one-on-one wisdom?
Sometimes that document can't be accomplished in an hour. and my check-ins are all an hour. So like that's a reality too. That's the only last thing I would say is like use your time wisely. If you have a 30-minute check-in, only use pieces of it. It's all good. As long as you're checking in with people and you're being consistent and you're really having this conversation, there's open communication, like that's the spirit of it and that's the point. So yeah, I hope people enjoy it and keep giving me feedback too. Let's do plus deltas around the check-in document, not to get too meta, but like if people have feedback about the check-in document, I want to hear them so I can make mine better too.
You're so meta. I love it. Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jess. Great to see you.